Hey guys, Bible in a Year, episode 48. Today we're talking about Numbers 26 through 31. And, you know, when we were getting ready to shoot this episode, Pastor Daniel and I were talking about the strong women that have been present in our life for generations. And that's what, we want to talk about a lot of things today, but we're really probably going to land right there, okay? So, hope you enjoy this today. We'll be right back with you here after this little opening. Okay, guys, there we go. Numbers 26 through 31, episode 48. We've had some strong women in our lives, haven't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's powerful. Let me run down if we can. We'll talk about this primarily, but
yeah,
let's just kind of run down real quick. You get into Numbers 26, guys. There's a census, and then there's a confirmation of the rejection. And you made a reference to this. I want to say 2 episodes ago, where they refused to cross the Jordan, and God said, "Look, okay, that's fine. You don't want to cross the Jordan? Well, you're not going to come in.
Okay,
you'll die on this side.
Here's your 40 years.
You're going to die on the eastern side of this river.
Yep.
Okay, and that's Numbers 26, 63 through 65. These are the ones counted by Moses and Eleazar the priest when they counted the Israelites on the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho." Which we've been to Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
Not one of them was among those counted by Moses and Aaron and the priests when they counted the Israelites in the desert of Sinai. For the Lord had told those Israelites they would surely die in the wilderness, and not one of them was left except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. So, guys, when you're reading this, all of these folks that you're reading about Numbers 26, it's a death toll, man.
That's right.
It's a listing of the dead. It's dead man walking. You ain't crossing that Jordan River. You will die in your faithlessness on the eastern side of the Jordan River. Then we'll come back to Numbers 27 in a second, okay? Numbers 28 through 30 is all about the festivals and the vows. Let's talk about vows for just 1 second, okay? You look at Numbers 30, and in the first 2 verses, verse 2 particularly, when a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word but must do everything he said. Jesus speaks very clearly against that in the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5:37. He says, look, don't even be making a vow.
Mm-hmm.
Just let your yes be yes and your no be no. This is another example of kind of a lessening of the standards, so to speak, not a lessening of the holiness of God, but almost like the certificate of divorce. Yes, Moses lets you do that, but that was because your hearts were hard.
Right.
But your word should be enough.
That's right.
And that's what Jesus is meaning by that. And then over in Numbers 31, vengeance is taken upon the Midianites, which is a huge deal, and even Balaam dies in that 31st chapter. But what I want to do for our time here today is to take a look at Numbers 27. This is such an interesting passage of Scripture. Okay, guys, I want to read you the first 11 verses here in just a second. I'll get a little housekeeping out of the way. Numbers 27, this is also where God tells Moses, Joshua's going to succeed you. You're going to die. Joshua's going into the promised land. He will be the one that succeeds you. He was one of the 2, Joshua and Caleb, who said, we can do this. And they were just shouted down, basically.
Right.
Okay? But then you get into Numbers 27, 1 through 11. And this is what I really want to focus on here today. So let me just read you this. Starting with verse 1. The daughters of Zelophehad, son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, belonged to the clans of Manasseh. Okay, so Joseph's 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, the clans of Manasseh, son of Joseph. The names of the daughters were Malah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, Tisra. They came forward and stood before Moses, Eleazar the priest, the leaders and the whole assembly at the entrance to the tent of meeting, and they said, our father died in the wilderness. He was not among Korah's followers who banded together against the Lord, but he died for his own sin and left no sons. Why should our father's name disappear from his clan because he had no son? Give us property among our father's relatives. This is a huge request.
Yeah.
This is not something women should do. When you read the Bible, I mean, even Paul says women be silent in the church. That's very different than how Jesus treated women.
Yeah.
But, or Deborah the prophetess, which we'll get to when we get to the book of Judges. But the strong women, culturally speaking, societally speaking, this was an absolute no-no. And yet those daughters of Zelophehad stood up in strength, went to Moses and the elders and said, right is right and wrong is wrong, and we're going to ask you to do right. Verse 5, so Moses brought their case before the Lord. And the Lord said to him, what Zelophehad's daughters are saying is right. You must certainly give them property as an inheritance among their father's relatives and give their father's inheritance to them. Say to the Israelites, if a man dies and leaves no son, give his inheritance to his daughter. If he has no daughter, give his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, give his inheritance to his father's brothers. If his father had no brothers, give his inheritance to the nearest relative in his clan, that he may possess it. This is to have the force of law for the Israelites as the Lord commanded Moses. Now, when we finish the book of Numbers, there's a huge discussion about, hey, the property can't transfer from tribe to tribe. And that's important.
Right.
Okay, that's important.
Right.
That's not what this is.
No.
This is just because our dad didn't have any boys doesn't mean our dad's name should disappear.
Right.
And the request of these young women, oh my gosh, you want to talk about courage?
Yeah.
This is courageous.
Yeah.
The fact that people run down women, I got a real problem with that. And I'm not just trying to cozy in with the women that watch this thing.
Right, right.
My experience growing up in church, it wasn't the men that had an impact on my life. And I've had a lot of men have an impact on my life, spiritually speaking, after the fact. But growing up, my faith was formed by a bunch of Zelophehad's daughters.
Yeah.
It was strong women. I know you've had that experience.
Yeah, I think that on both sides, and like you're saying, you're speaking for both sides as well. I mean, there's plenty of need for spiritual fathers, and there's plenty of need for spiritual mothers in our lives, in our walk of faith, and I like a couple things that come to my mind in particular as you're reading that passage and we're addressing these women that are addressed here, to really define what it is that makes people like you and me appreciate women of faith, and what is it in their character, in their attributes, in who they are and how they carry themselves that makes them monumental in our own walks, and like kind of like spiritual mentors, spiritual heroes, those types of things. And one of the things that I think about, really twofold. Like I think of first my mom, and as I think about my mom, one of the things that I think about is like exactly what's being said here, of not just standing up for what's right, but standing up in faith.
100%.
You see what I'm saying? Like
100%.
I know lots of people that stand up for what's right, but when you stand up for what's right in faith, and the faith that you possess is greater than being right, oh my goodness,
it's beyond a patriotism.
It is.
It's I'm a child of the King.
Yes, like that. Like I just love that about my mom, and and I've seen both sides of that. Like in her temper that very well. Of like, no, this is a point to stand up for what's right. And then other times, no, this is a point to stand for faith. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, love rejoices when the truth wins out here. It's standing in faith rather than trying to be right. And I love that, and I just value that in my own mother. And, like, the other thing is like, my wife, Casey's a quiet person. She is. But being quiet doesn't mean that you aren't strong. You know, and like I will tell you this, sometimes I think the greatest examples of strength are because there is a holding in silence, or there is this just like this confidence of just being okay with who I am and committed to that, whether people see that or not. And like I admire that about my wife. Like, you know, that's I used to say to high school kids all the time, like, you can post something and everybody will see what you're doing, but those that are working when no one else is seeing it, that says something. Like, I don't need people to know that and the Bible even speaks to this, like that I'm fasting or that I'm praying. Like, no, like when a woman says, no, like this is what God has called me to do, regardless if people see it or not, there's strength to that. And when that is the character that's being built because it's based on a relationship with the Lord and that's what he's called me to do, and it's irrelevant what other people think, man, that's some strength.
Was it your great-grandmother who was the Pentecostal pastor?
Yeah. So, like, yeah, everybody's like, where'd you get your fire? Probably from my great-grandmother on my dad's side, but they used to tease her all the time. She would go to preach camp meetings and tent revivals and different things like that, and they would get her in the car. We've talked about really all of this book about holiness.
Sure.
She was big on holiness, and they would tell her in the car that she couldn't speak on sin, and she would just tell them, just turn the car around. Then if you're not going to let me speak about sin and repentance, then just let me go back home, you know. But like with that fire and passion and a call towards holiness, at the same time she was the same. She had a heart of like and I don't remember what she said, but I remember her touch. When she was passing, like I would go in and I was little, and be by her bedside. And I remember she would just with the backside of her hand stroke my face. And she used to always call me her little handsome, you know, and just like, so like there was that gentleness, but man, like don't mess with that lady. You know what I mean? Like
I do.
Same thing with my mom's mom, my grandma on that side. Like there's a gentleness there, but my goodness, she don't mess with her. So
yeah, it's funny. Last Sunday I preached on the return of Christ. And this week I'm preaching on the return of Christ. I'm not lying about this. Anytime I talk about the return of Christ, I think of your grandma.
Yeah.
I mean, it is significant.
Yeah.
It just is. Your grandmother's influence on my life in the little bit of time that I knew her,
Yeah.
it's major. And everybody hears me talk. I mean, my mom just passed, obviously, but my mother's influence on my life.
Yeah.
Both of my grandmothers.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk about Granny all the time, but Grandma Dot, oh my gosh, just her faithfulness over the years. It's just absolutely overwhelming. You know, but I also think about those women that I went to Bible study with at 17, 18 years old. It was me, my pastor, and 8 blue-haired ladies.
Yeah.
And so when I read a passage like Zelophehad's daughters, it's inspiring to me. I know some people out there, and I'm not trying to stir trouble by this. That's not why I'm saying all this, but I know some people try to keep women down. Not this guy.
Right.
I'm not the
Oh,
one.
I'm with you. Yeah.
And look, again, everybody plays his and her role. And as soon as I say that, people go, there it is. There it is. He thinks men are more. No, that's not what I said. Jesus is the head.
That's right.
All else is the body.
Yeah.
And when you look at that passage about wives be subject to your husbands, husbands love your wives, the context for that is mutual submission to one another.
Yeah.
You know, but when I look at my life, I'm just saying, the women in my life, they've shaped me immeasurably. And I will tell you, you know, Leslie used to be a lot more out front than she is now. But I think all 4 pastors here at Kingdom, Bob included, those women barely say a word in this place. I'm going to name them in the order that they got here.
Yeah.
Leslie, Tanya, Casey, Donna.
Yeah.
And you think of the strong women that we have on staff, and I'm not going to start naming everybody, but you know, you think about those ladies that get together to pack lunch boxes every week and then go out for a dinner afterwards. I'm just telling you, man, the people, the women that are part of James's Edge group, they are strong.
Yeah.
I mean, strong.
Yeah, there's no, they're in what you're saying of like recognizing strength and recognizing greatness, we're not making those things biased towards one set of group of people or even a gender. Like that's, why would it deny someone the greatness that they are, regardless of what gender they are? You know what I mean? Like there are so many great people, so many great leaders that are women, and so many great leaders that are men. Like that is huge. I mean, I was having a conversation recently with someone and just wanting to affirm in them, hey, like, I'm not denying your greatness. Like, I just think that's so important that people understand, like, well, yes, they're talking about this and they're highlighting this chapter in a certain way. No. Like, we're recognizing that there have been great and mighty women in our lives that have made us better, have made us great. Like, I think that like even what you're saying about our wives and the wives that are represented here at this church, especially among the pastorate, like, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. Like, you know what I mean? It's hard. And behind every, and what you're saying to add to that is behind every great pastor here is an even stronger woman.
Oh my gosh.
You know?
That's just so true. Good discussion.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to finish up the book of Numbers tomorrow. Good discussion to finish her up tomorrow. But, yeah, let's just everybody, you be who God created you to be, and don't you dare ever let somebody talk you down just because of, being a woman or being a kid or, being from this side of the river or whatever. God made you. You are a creation of the one true and living God, and you stand in that with great humility and joy. So, all right, that's it. God bless you guys. We'll see you tomorrow.